I woke up to an empty house, a note on the kitchen table, and silence. My wife had vanished overnight. No calls, no texts. Just gone. Ghosted. But that was just the beginning. By Monday morning, not only was she gone, so was my job, my reputation, and the project I had spent 20 years building. And both had been stolen by the two people I trusted the most, my wife and my best friend. My name is Julian Smith, and this is the story of how being completely erased from my own life became the catalyst for something I never could have imagined. The note was brief, clinical even.
Gone to campus early with Leo to submit the final proposal package. Back for lunch. Gina.
Nothing unusual there. Gina and Leonardo had always handled the administrative side of our research, while I focused on the technical details. We were a team, or so I thought. But when noon came and went, then 1 o'clock, then 2, something felt wrong. The house had an emptiness that went beyond their physical absence. It was the kind of silence that screams at you, the kind that tells you everything has changed while you were sleeping. I walked through our home, touching surfaces that suddenly felt foreign, as if I were already becoming a ghost in my own life. You see, we were on the verge of something extraordinary. After nearly a decade of work, our educational methodology called ARED, the Adaptive Response Educational Development System, was about to receive a $50 million federal grant. This wasn't just funding, it was validation of everything I'd worked toward since escaping poverty in East Los Angeles through education. The night before, we'd celebrated at our home. 8-year-old Michael was already asleep upstairs when Leo arrived with expensive champagne, toasting to changing American education forever. Gina kissed me deeply that night, whispering how proud she was of what we'd built together. I fell asleep believing I was about to achieve my life's purpose. How naive I was. When I finally drove to campus that afternoon, their offices were empty. Calls went straight to voicemail. That's when the real nightmare began. I headed to the department chair's office, expecting to confirm our submission and plan our celebration. Instead, Dean Richardson's face showed deep concern when I entered.
Julian, I was just about to call you. We need to discuss these allegations immediately.
Allegations. The word hit me like ice water. What followed was a masterclass in calculated betrayal. Leo and Gina hadn't just ghosted me, they'd completely rewritten our story. They claimed I had stolen their research. They'd been building a case for months, moving our shared files to personal drives, repositioning themselves as the driving force behind ARED, while casting me as merely technical support. But that's absurd, I protested to the dean. ARD is based on my doctoral research from 15 years ago. I developed the core methodology before I even met them. But they'd been thorough, methodical. Every conference presentation I'd missed, Leo had used to showcase his work. Every grant meeting I'd skipped to focus on research, Gina had attended to build relationships with key decision-makers. They'd spent 2 years systematically erasing me from my own creation. I drove home in shock, my world tilting on its axis. When I saw Leo's car in our driveway, relief flooded through me. They'd come to explain, to apologize for this terrible misunderstanding. The truth was so much worse. I heard them before I saw them. Sounds from upstairs that turned my stomach, that confirmed my worst fears. I found them in our bed, the bed where Gina and I had conceived Michael, where we'd whispered dreams of changing education for disadvantaged children. Time seemed to slow down. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, drowning out everything else. The room tilted slightly, as if reality itself had shifted. In that moment, I understood that I hadn't just been ghosted. I'd been completely erased from my own life. "How long?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Gina recovered first, pulling the sheet around herself with practiced ease.
Julian, this isn't how we wanted you to find out.
2 years.
Leo admitted, a flash of defiance in his eyes.
Look, it wasn't planned. It just evolved.
2 years. 2 years of strategic deception while I trusted them with everything. My research, my dreams, my family. They'd ghosted me emotionally long before I discovered their betrayal. For 2 years I had been invisible to them, a useful tool, nothing more. And Arid? My voice shook now, rage building beneath the shock. They exchanged a glance, partners now in more ways than one.
You wouldn't know how to get it funded and implemented.
Gina said, her voice sharp with ambition.
Your approach is too idealistic. We did what was necessary.
The cruelty of it was breathtaking. They'd stolen my life's work and convinced themselves they were doing me a favor. But the worst was yet to come. A small voice cut through the chaos.
Dad?
Michael stood in the doorway, small and confused, his 8-year-old eyes wide with fear. That was the last normal moment I would have with my son for years. What followed was systematic destruction, a masterclass in how to erase a human being from every aspect of their existence. Within days, the University Ethics Committee, conveniently led by Gina's uncle, suspended me pending investigation. My campus access was revoked. Colleagues who had shared coffee with me for years suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. But the professional destruction was nothing compared to what came next. Gina filed for divorce and emergency custody, claiming my erratic behavior made me dangerous to Michael. She painted a picture of an unstable man who couldn't handle professional rejection, a narrative that fit perfectly with their theft of my work. The nights became my enemy. I would lie awake staring at the ceiling of my colleague Dave's guest room, the only person who still believed in my innocence, and feel myself disappearing piece by piece. Sleep brought nightmares where I searched endlessly for Michael in empty hallways, calling his name while my voice grew weaker and weaker until no sound came out at all. During the day, panic attacks struck without warning. I'd be grocery shopping or walking across campus when suddenly my chest would tighten, my vision would blur, and I'd struggle to breathe. In those moments, I felt like I was dissolving, becoming as invisible as Gina and Leo had already made me feel. The custody hearing felt like theatre with a script already written. Gina arrived flanked by top lawyers, calm and convincing. I sat alone, my words weighed down by disbelief. The judge listened politely, then delivered a decision that shattered me. Full custody to Gina, supervised visits for me. My reputation had been erased. Now my role as a father was vanishing too. As I left that courtroom, I wasn't just defeated. I was invisible. They hadn't just taken my work. They'd ghosted me from my own child's life. The supervised visits with Michael were torture. Each meeting took place in a sterile room with a social worker watching from the corner. My son sat stiffly across from me, his body language screaming discomfort.
Mom says you're sick.
He told me during one visit, his 8-year-old voice flat and rehearsed.
That you got angry because other people liked her ideas better than yours.
Michael, that's not true. I would never...
She said you'd say that.
His eyes, my eyes, looked right through me.
Leo says I shouldn't believe you because you're jealous of their success.
I tried to explain, But how do you tell an 8-year-old about academic theft and marital betrayal? How do you compete with a mother's whispered poison and a stepfather's patient manipulation? After 6 months, he refused to see me at all. The court psychologist, a colleague of Gina's, said forcing visitation would harm Michael's emotional well-being. Just like that, my son vanished from my life, ghosted by his own mother's manipulation. There's a unique grief that comes with being erased, not just from your job or marriage, but from your own life's story. I spent days staring at walls, feeling like I was becoming transparent, like I might simply fade away entirely. Food tasted like ash. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, gaunt, hollow-eyed, already half gone. One morning, Dave found me curled on his bathroom floor, my knuckles bloody from punching the wall in my sleep.
"This place is killing you,"
he said, helping me up.
"You need to leave Ithaca, Julian. There's nothing here for you but ghosts."
He was right. I was becoming one of them. The night before I left Ithaca, I drove to our old house one last time. I sat in my car across the street, watching shadows move behind the curtains of what used to be my home. In Michael's window, I caught a glimpse of a small figure looking out. For just a moment, our eyes met across the darkness. Then the curtain fell back, and he was gone. In that moment, I understood what it truly meant to be ghosted, to become invisible to the people who once loved you, to watch your own life continue without you in it. I packed my life into a single suitcase that night. 20 years of marriage, a decade of groundbreaking research, a lifetime of dreams, all reduced to clothes, a few books, and a charred piece of my AR-Ed research notes that I'd tried to burn one night in despair. That blackened paper, with its curled edges, became my talisman, proof that something essential can survive even the most destructive fire. I moved to Detroit, a city rising from its own neglect. It felt poetic to seek my rebirth in a place doing the same. The abandoned factories stood like shells of former lives, waiting for new purpose. Much like me. After my academic reputation was destroyed, I took a job teaching at Benjamin Carson High School, serving mainly low-income students in a building that showed every sign of educational neglect. The paint peeled, lights flickered, and textbooks were held together with tape. This was education at its core, stripped of status and pretense. On my first day, facing 30 skeptical teenagers who'd learned not to expect much from the system, I made a choice. Instead of hiding my past, I owned it. "I'm Mr. Smith," I said simply. "I used to be Professor Smith at Cornell University. Now I'm just Mr. Smith, and I'm here because I believe in what education can be when we strip away everything except what matters." One student, Marcus, snorted.
"Nobody cares who you used to be. Why should we listen to you now?"
It was the most honest question I'd heard in years. I fingered that charred paper fragment in my pocket and smiled. Fair enough. You shouldn't. Not until I earn it. And slowly I did. The nights were still hard. I would sit in my small apartment, staring at that burned piece of paper taped to my wall, and feel the weight of everything I'd lost. Sometimes I would cry, silent tears for the father I couldn't be, for the marriage that was built on lies I never saw, for the work that had been stolen and corrupted. But during the day, something was growing. Without fancy technology or unlimited funding, I rebuilt my methodology from scratch, focusing on the core principles that truly helped struggling students. These kids understood being written off, being made to feel invisible by systems that should support them. I called my new approach RISE, Responsive Individualized Student Empowerment. The name was deliberate, rising from the ashes of what had been destroyed. Students who'd been labeled unteachable began to flourish. Marcus, my first skeptic, became my strongest advocate.
You're different.
He told me one day, as we worked late in our converted storage room.
Other teachers look through us like we're not even there. You actually see us.
His words hit deeper than he knew. I understood what it felt like to be invisible, to be ghosted by the people who should care most. During these years, I tried repeatedly to contact Michael. I wrote letters every month, birthday cards, Christmas greetings, updates about my life in Detroit. Most went unanswered. I never knew if he was receiving them or if Gina was intercepting everything, adding to the wall of silence she'd built around my son. On his 12th birthday, I drove the 6 hours to Ithaca and waited outside his school, hoping just to see him, perhaps give him a gift I'd brought. When he emerged and spotted me, his face didn't light up with recognition or joy. It registered fear. He immediately pulled out his phone, calling someone, and deliberately turned his back on me. I left before Gina or Leo arrived, the wrapped gift still on my passenger seat. The drive back to Detroit was the longest 6 hours of my life. That night, I sat in my empty apartment and truly understood what it meant to be ghosted by your own child, to be transformed in his mind from father to stranger, from protector to threat. Meanwhile, news of Gina and Leo's success occasionally reached me. The ARED system was being implemented nationwide. They'd married, appeared on educational panels, gave TED Talks. Their faces smiled from magazine covers while I graded papers in a rundown Detroit classroom. But then, cracks began to show. Early reports revealed troubling problems with their version of ARED. Student anxiety increased, achievement gaps widened between demographic groups, and struggling learners, the very population the system was meant to help, made even less progress than before. They'd copied my system's surface structure, but completely missed its heart, the deep understanding of how disadvantaged students actually learn and grow. It was like watching someone try to perform surgery with a photograph of the operation, technically accurate, but missing everything that mattered. Then something unexpected happened. A filmmaker named Sophia Adams discovered our work in Detroit after hearing rumors about remarkable transformations happening in an underfunded public school. For 6 months, Sophia's cameras documented the changes in our learning lab.
"This isn't about you,"
Sophia told me when I hesitated about being filmed, still raw from my public humiliation.
"It's about the method and these kids. Their stories deserve to be told."
I showed her that charred paper fragment I kept on my desk. "This is what remains of my life's work," I said. "Everything else was taken. I'm afraid of losing this too." She studied the blackened remains for a moment.
"From what I see, you've built something much stronger from those ashes. They can't steal it because it lives in these kids now."
The resulting documentary, Learning Revolution, Inside Detroit's Educational Underground, premiered at Tribeca 4 years after my life fell apart. Its success surprised everyone, including me. But more importantly, the film's release coincided with growing criticism of the official ARED program. The Department of Education launched a formal investigation into both the methodology's effectiveness and the grant allocation process. I was subpoenaed to testify. Walking into that Washington hearing room, I spotted Gina and Leo at the witness table, looking polished and confident. But my attention was captured by a familiar figure in the gallery. Michael, now 16, taller than I remembered, with my jawline and Gina's eyes, watching the proceedings with curious attention. When it was my turn to testify, I didn't attack them directly. I simply explained the philosophical foundation of my work, the principles they'd failed to understand. Art was my creation, I stated firmly, looking directly at my son. The version implemented by Doctors Davis and Whitman reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of its core principles. From the gallery, Michael watched confusion and recognition cross his face simultaneously. This clearly wasn't the story he'd been told for 8 years. A month later, as I left school on an ordinary Thursday afternoon, I found a figure waiting by my car. My breath caught. It was Michael, no longer the frightened 8-year-old I'd lost, but a young man searching for truth.
"You're nothing like they said,"
were his first words, his voice deeper than I remembered, but cracking with emotion. Michael. My voice failed me completely.
"I've been watching you,"
he continued, stepping closer.
"Not just today. I came to your class yesterday too, sat in the back. You didn't see me, but I watched how you are with those kids, how you actually listen to them."
What followed was the most important conversation of my life. He told me about the lies, how they'd intercepted every letter I'd sent, fabricated stories about restraining orders, convinced him I'd abandoned him because my career mattered more than he did.
"I never got any of your letters,"
he said, pain evident in his voice.
"Not one. And that day at school when I was 12, Mom said you'd violated a court order that you might try to take me away."
There was never any restraining order, I whispered. Michael, I wrote to you every month for years. Birthday cards, Christmas, everything. I tried to call. I came to see you because I missed you so much it felt like dying. He pulled out a worn DVD case, the documentary.
"I found this at a friend's house 3 weeks ago. I've watched it 6 times now. The way you work with these students, the way they talk about you."
His voice caught.
"It's nothing like what Mom and Leo do. Their version feels hollow. All buzzwords and fancy technology, but the kids hate it."
The Department of Education eventually cut all funding for the ARED program and redirected resources to a new initiative based on RISE methodology. I was invited to serve as a key consultant, but more importantly, the investigation revealed the extent of the academic fraud that had destroyed my career. Cornell University offered me my position back with full tenure restoration, but I declined. My place was in Detroit, with students who needed what I could offer, in a city that understood resurrection. Michael chose to finish high school with me in Detroit, despite Gina's fierce legal battle to prevent it. Our relationship is still healing. 8 years of separation and poisoned narratives don't disappear overnight. But every day, we build something stronger and more honest from what remains. Gina and Leo's marriage didn't survive the scandal. When the foundation of your relationship is mutual deception and stolen dreams, what's left when the truth comes out? Leo later admitted to a reporter,
When your entire partnership is built on betrayal, there's nothing real left to save when it all falls apart.
Some might expect this story to end with satisfaction at seeing my betrayers face consequences. But revenge was never my goal. Redemption was. The real victory lies in what we built from the ashes, a methodology that truly serves struggling students, a relationship with my son based on truth rather than manipulation, and a legacy that no one can steal because it lives in the lives we've changed. Michael graduates next month, planning to study education and neuroscience.
"I want to continue what you started,"
he told me recently.
"but I want to do it right from the beginning."
Last week, he gave me a gift, a fireproof document case. Inside, I placed that charred fragment of my original notes alongside all our new research. The past and present sit side by side, not erased, but transformed into something stronger. Walking through Detroit today, I see reflections of my journey everywhere. Abandoned buildings sprout new life through cracked foundations. Murals transform graffitied walls into art. Community gardens bloom in vacant lots. The city demonstrates that the most beautiful growth often comes not despite destruction, but because of it. For those listening who've faced betrayal, who've been ghosted by people they trusted, remember this. They can take your position, your reputation, even your family for a time. But they cannot take your purpose unless you surrender it. Being ghosted, completely erased from your own life, is devastating. It makes you question whether you ever existed, whether you ever mattered. But it can also be liberating. When they erase you from their story, you're free to write your own. The greatest response to betrayal isn't destruction, it's creation. I lost everything and found something greater in the ashes. What seemed like an ending was merely the fire needed for a more authentic life to emerge. They tried to ghost me from my own story. Instead, they freed me to write a better one. Sometimes the people who disappear you from their lives are doing you the greatest favor of all. They're making space for you to become who you were truly meant to be. What will your next chapter be?